welcome to our Congressional Western Caucus Forum that's titled Securing Cleaner American Energy. Today I'm joined by the House Energy and Commerce Republican leader, Cathy McMorris Rodgers of the great state of Washington, as well as committee member, Mr. Buddy Carter, a great friend from the great state of Georgia. Welcome to both of you. I'm so glad that you are here with me today. Also, a special thanks to the witnesses that we have with us today for really making yourself available out of, I'm sure, a busy schedule. It's great to have you here with us to highlight the need for continued development of clean energy infrastructure. This week, as you probably all know, at least you should by now, National Clean Energy Week. And we at the Congressional Western Caucus are highlighting solutions, including the Energy and Commerce Committee Republicans' agenda for securing cleaner American energy. So thank you for your work on that, both of you. It's been put forth by members to promote innovative clean energy technology and to further infrastructure development. From baseload resources like hydropower, which we love in the Pacific Northwest, and nuclear power, to supplemental energy sources like windmills and solar panels. The United States must promote investment into a variety of clean energy resources if we are going to continue to lead the way toward a clean energy future. Energy infrastructure is central to our economy and key to achieving carbon emission goals. Unfortunately, much of our nation's infrastructure is in need of an upgrade, especially our energy infrastructure. Having realistic, substantive legislative proposals that incentivize public-private partnerships, grid reliability, and efficient energy technologies that all are critical to modernizing that infrastructure. Our members, our Republican colleagues, know that we can meet our climate and clean energy goals and achieve a net zero energy sector while still protecting jobs and ensuring energy reliability and securing American energy independence. These energy and climate solutions will help modernize our infrastructure and guarantee that America continues to lead the world in reducing emissions, all while maintaining grid reliability and low costs for hardworking Americans. Packages and other legislative efforts like Energy and Commerce's Securing Cleaner American Energy will promote an all of the above energy strategy and upgrade our existing investment in energy infrastructure. Promoting technological advancement, growing our use and investment in nuclear energy, expanding hydropower, supporting oil and natural gas innovation, and investing in our construction and manufacturing sectors are all key to securing cleaner energy. Supporting the security of traditional baseload energy sources and other technologies is also critical to expanding and developing other supplemental sources and technologies. For example, natural gas, there remains a key baseload source of energy, and we've invested in technologies like fracking and carbon capture utilization and storage that make the extraction of oil and natural gas cleaner, safer for workers, and less invasive. We also know that pipelines remain the safest, most efficient, most environmentally friendly way to move oil and natural gas. Deploying more advanced nuclear reactors like the ones coming to Washington, I'm very excited about that, as well as the state of Wyoming, provide real investments that will help to decarbonize the energy sector and provide substantial amounts of clean, low-cost energy across the United States. Continuing to invest in critical technological innovations will help us advance renewable resources while reducing carbon emissions, allowing intermittent energy sources like solar and wind to thrive. Private companies have voluntarily committed to decarbonize while also calling for innovation and permitting reform to help make these commitments a reality and to ensure reliability and affordability. Won't be easy, but we can answer those calls. Our members have tangible and realistic solutions to keep energy costs low, reduce emissions, make energy cleaner, secure Americans' energy future, and continue to secure our global leadership on this front. So now, I would now like to turn it over to my dear friend, colleague from the great state of Washington, a fellow Western Caucus member and ranking member for the Energy and Commerce Committee, Representative Cathy McMorris Rodgers, for any opening remarks you may have. Cathy, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your leadership. Congressman Dan Newhouse, my friend and neighbor and colleague from Washington State. Proud that you are leading the Western Caucus right now, and you're doing a great job. And I appreciate the invitation to be able to join today's forum. This is such an important issue as we think about energy. It is the backbone of our country. It is foundational to American leadership, to our prosperity. It drives our economy and bolsters our manufacturing sector. It's vital to American families and households. It's done more to lift people out of poverty and raise the standard of living than anything as we think about American energy. Just in 2020, America finally became energy independent after decades of work and commitment. We were energy secure, no longer dependent upon Middle Eastern oil. And it was the shale revolution that enabled US energy to become less expensive and more reliable. Now, we find ourselves in a very different place. You think we're 8 months into the new administration, but it was on day one that President Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline, putting thousands of Americans out of work. He then went on to condone the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which was aiding Russia. He reopened the negotiations with Iran on the previous nuclear treaty. And then just last month, Biden put the country, the United States of America, in the position of asking OPEC to lift their caps on pumping more oil. And that's at the same time that the administration is working hard to shut down oil and natural gas production here in the United States, especially on federal lands. It's against the backdrop of these reckless energy policies that we are finding now more than ever. It just seems like there's some magical thinking from some on the left when it comes to climate change, that they come up with deadlines and percentages for the electricity sector, a whole new clean economy, electrifying the vehicle fleet, but they cannot explain how they're going to meet these goals, either from a technological, engineering, or economic standpoint. And even when faced with these credible opinions, as far as deadlines and goals not being achievable, they just seem to double down on their positions. And that's why it's so important that we continue to highlight the inaccuracies and the impossibilities. One of the most frightening parts for me as we continue down this rush to green is that the current approach is going to make us dangerously dependent upon China. We will be dependent upon China for critical minerals that are needed for wind, solar, batteries, and electric vehicles. China controls the renewable supply chains, and turning over our energy and transportation systems to one of the most serious enemies is almost unbelievable, but that seems to be where we are today. The left's rush to green policies will also require products and resources from child and forced labor. You think about children in the Congo mining cobalt, slave labor in China processing critical minerals and manufacturing solar panels. As Americans, how can we enable and condone such behavior? It is not in alignment with Americans' values or our principles. Energy and Commerce Republicans have been focusing on our own legislative agenda to develop and deploy more clean energy and reduce emissions. Innovation, American innovation, should be driving climate policies. And I'm one that's always going to bet on American ingenuity. Earlier this Congress, the Energy and Commerce Republicans released our Securing Cleaner American Energy agenda. And it includes nearly 20 different bills that will unleash innovation bring more energy online, and keep our air clean. The various bills focus on the importance of removing regulatory barriers to permitting, building more energy infrastructure, natural gas pipelines, nuclear reactors, hydropower, transmission lines, and manufacturing facilities. For instance, I have a bill that will improve and streamline the licensing process for hydropower, one of our greatest energy sources, and an emissions-free one for that. And you'll hear more both from Avista and Diamond Foundry as to the importance of hydropower. And with that, I'm looking forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy. We're just delighted that you're part of this important discussion. So thank you for being here. Let me turn now to another friend and colleague in Congress who represents, I think, Georgia's 1st congressional district. And just let me tell you, Mr. Buddy Carter has the distinction of being the easternmost member of the Western Caucus. You can't get much further east than Savannah, Georgia, let me tell you.
No, you can't.
Buddy, we're happy to have you as a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and let's turn the floor to you for your comment.
Well, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Kathy, for your remarks as well. And I appreciate you putting this together, Dan. It is extremely important because, you know, I get frustrated, as you both know, and because I think Republicans are profiled sometimes, if you will, as being anti-clean energy. Nothing could be further from the truth. You know, I mean, especially if you look at the fact that Republicans have a long history of conservation, and you only have to look as far as Teddy Roosevelt, who discovered and created the national parks, Richard Nixon, who created the EPA, I should say. And I do believe that Republicans get a bad rap a lot of times because I think this is where the facts are important. And the facts are that we have been a party that's been very involved in clean energy, and we continue to do that. We all know that we have a responsibility to protect our natural wonders and to preserve our natural wonders. I tell people all the time, I have the honor and privilege of representing the entire coast of Georgia, over 100 miles of pristine coastline. It's my home. It's where I've lived all my life and where I intend to live the rest of my life. Some of my fondest memories are going fishing with my dad when I was growing up. And you know, that's the same kind of experiences I hope my children and my grandchildren have. And I want to make sure that it's there for them. I want to make sure that our natural resources are taken care of. But the facts matter. And I get frustrated often because, you know, not only do I serve on Energy and Commerce and on the Environmental and Clean and Climate Change Subcommittee, but I also serve on the Select Committee for Climate Change. And I get frustrated all the time because I feel like the United States gets a bad rap. In the past decade, the United States has decreased our carbon emissions more than the next 12 countries combined. And during that time, we've continued to grow our economy. So I believe it can be done. Obviously, it can be done. We've done it. And we have grown our economy and we have decreased our carbon emissions. But we need to, I've always said we need to achieve 3 things when we're talking about clean energy, when we're talking about climate change. We have to have adaptation, mitigation, and innovation. Kathy mentioned innovation, and I believe that the greatest innovators, the greatest scientists are right here in the United States of America. And I believe it's incumbent upon us to make sure we lead in innovation. And I think that we've done that, and we continue to do that. Even if you look at fossil fuels, we've cleaned that up so much. I mean, the natural gas that we're using more and more of is so much cleaner than some of the other fossil fuels that we were using in the past. And if you compare what's being used in Russia and China, that coal there, that's dirty coal, as opposed to what we're using here, which is much cleaner. And I don't think we get the credit for that as we should. But, you know, as we go more toward clean energy, it doesn't mean that we have to destroy our economy and raise energy prices for American families. And that's something that's extremely important because I tell you, some of the proposals that have come out of the Green New Deal and some of the proposals that have even come out of the Select Committee for Climate Change, who are they going to have the most impact economically on? It's going to be the lower class and the the lower middle class. Those are the ones who are really going to suffer because of increased energy costs. You know, I'm old enough to remember the late 70s. And I always say that there's a difference between knowing something and realizing something. And in the late 70s, we knew we were too dependent on the Middle East for our energy needs. But we realized it whenever gas got up to $5 and $6 a gallon. And we knew that we had to have energy independence. And we achieved that, even to the point where now we have energy dominance. But now we have an administration that seems to be wanting to throw that away. And, you know, as was mentioned with the first day in office, President Biden did away with the Keystone Pipeline. And yet they have endorsed and even supported the Nord Stream 2. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever that we've worked so hard to create and to achieve energy dominance in this country that we're just going to throw it away. And that helps us in so many different ways. Obviously, it helps our citizens with lower prices for energy, but it also helps us on the world stage. My good friend, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, says quite often that whenever he was traveling the world, it was always an advantage for him to know that the United States had energy dominance. It gave him the confidence that he needed and the big stick, if you will, that he needed to know that he had that to negotiate with. I'm also proud of what Georgia has done, my home state. Georgia has, as you know, it has plenty of land, plenty of sunshine. We got a lot of pine trees, and I get frustrated too whenever they talk about agriculture and ag being a problem. Ag is not part of the problem. Ag is part of the solution. And if we look at Georgia, the #1 forestry state in the nation, those forests serve as carbon sinks. And we need to keep that in mind. Biomass, which is another carbon neutral energy source. That is something else that I think we need to look more at. And I'm very proud. Georgia right now is in the top 10 in solar power. I'm very proud of that. In fact, the governor has already said that by the year 2024, Georgia will be ranked 4th in solar power. And I think that's significant. I've heard from a lot of farmers throughout the state who begun to put solar installations on their lands. And that's the type of innovation and type of adaptation, if you will, that we need to have in order to make sure that we're using green energy. Companies like Google and Facebook have come to Georgia and to do business. Georgia is the #1 state, again, for the 7th year in a row, ranked the #1 state in which to do business. And part of the reason for that is because companies like Google and Facebook are coming because they know we are a state of clean energy. We've got the only 2 nuclear reactors at Plant Vogtle right now that are currently under construction. And we all know that nuclear is part of the solution as well, that it is clean energy and that it's part of the base load that we're going to have in order to achieve what we want to achieve in our investment in clean energy. So I hope Georgia will be a good example. I hope they'll be a good example, and they should be, and we should be in the state of Georgia, a good example of how we can utilize clean energy and continue to grow our economy at the same time. So again, thank you, Dan, for having me. I am proud to be the easternmost member of the Western Caucus.
We're proud to have you.
Back.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks. Great to have you and as part of this discussion. And just so you know, my staff is going to be checking all those claims to ranking #1 for Georgia here very soon.
I fight this fight all the time about Georgia being the #1 forestry state in the nation, and it is.
Awesome. Awesome.
2/3 of our state is in the forestry.
There you go. Well, good deal. I'm glad you're with us. But we are very fortunate to have some very qualified individuals to talk about this important subject today. So let me recognize our first panelist, if you could. Mr. Clay Sell. He's the Chief Executive Officer of X Energy, which is a nuclear reactor and fuel design engineering company. Mr. Sell has extensive experience across several sectors of the international and the U.S. energy industry. He has served as the Deputy Secretary of Energy in the George W. Bush administration and as president of Hunt Energy Horizons LLC, including several years' experience in senior level positions in the private sector as well as government. Very qualified individual to be part of this discussion. Mr. Sell, the floor is yours for the next 5 minutes. And you need to unmute, Clay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman of the Western Caucus, Congressman Newhouse. I really appreciate it. Representative McMorris Rodgers, Representative Carter. Thank you very much for this opportunity during National Clean Energy Week to highlight the work of X-Energy and our partners to secure a clean and economically prosperous future for American energy. My name is Clay Sell. I'm the Chief Executive of X-Energy. X-Energy is a clean energy technology company with a vision to change the world by empowering people through carbon-free energy at scale. Our technology of choice is Generation 4 high-temperature gas-cooled nuclear reactors. I have an example here. We're the manufacturer of this special TRISO-X fuel used in our reactors and other advanced reactors. Our commercial plant is called the XE100, and it's optimally configured at 320 megawatt electric, but can be scaled up or down in 80 megawatt increments. Our plant is intrinsically safe. It benefits from a simplified and flexible design. It's economically attractive, and it's economically attractive for a wide variety of electricity and process heat applications. Now, what does that sentence mean that I just said? Please allow me to briefly elaborate. It really starts with our fuel. This is a fuel form in the reactor that cannot melt down under any scenario that the reactor would see. It cannot melt down because the fuel form is composed of graphite, and the uranium is encapsulated in ceramic material, which will not melt. This fuel form also retains 99.999% of the waste produced during burnup. All of these characteristics led the Department of Energy to describe this fuel as the most robust nuclear fuel on Earth. We take this incredibly robust meltdown-proof fuel and we put it in a reactor that is designed to also be intrinsically safe. It is also a reactor that cannot melt down in any scenario, and it has that attribute because of the specific design attributes that we made: a low power density, something called the negative temperature coefficient, and the use of this robust TRISO-X fuel. Now, this is important. When you start with a reactor that cannot melt down under any scenario, you are starting with a reactor different from every other reactor that's been built in the United States. Now, the current reactor fleet, the plants that are being built at Plant Vogtle right now in Georgia, are incredibly safe, but they are made so by an elaborate amount of equipment, backup pumps, backup powers, extra fuel reservoirs, and various equipment that would operate in the case of a loss of coolant to ensure that the plant does not have a major accident like 3 Mile Island. But because our reactor starts from the beginning with a reactor that can't melt, we largely free ourselves from a lot of the equipment that we've come to expect for a traditional nuclear plant. That makes our plant more simple, more elegant, and it has 1/10 the number of systems in it that a traditional light water reactor is. So that simpler design, when we go to get this thing regulated, we show up to the regulator with a smaller basket of risks that have to be characterized, analyzed, mitigated, and regulated, which means we have a faster regulatory pathway and we have a more economic plant to be built. All of the components of our plant are built in a factory. They're not built out at the site like Plant Vogtle. They are shipped to the site on trucks, and they are assembled on site more akin to the way you would assemble a natural gas combined cycle plant instead of what you think about as a traditional nuclear. We are reinventing nuclear power and the way the world thinks about nuclear power at X-Energy with this technology. The plant that I've just described is the plant that we will build in Washington State, in Congressman Newhouse's district, with our utility partners, Energy Northwest and Grant County Public Utility District. We are doing this as part of the Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program, which was an amazing program created by visionary leaders in the Congress and signed into law last year. Our DOE award is a 50-50 cost share. And I believe what starts in Washington State will eventually change the way the world thinks about clean, carbon-free, always-on power for the growing economy of the future. Thank you for allowing me to quickly tell our story, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Clay, very much. And just let me say, in Washington, we are very excited about the project that you've been engaged in and looking forward to the future. It's going to be awesome for our energy sector. Next, I want to turn the responsibility over to my colleague, Ranking Member McMorris Rodgers, to introduce and recognize our next guest. Kathy, could you do that?
Very good. I agree. Very excited about X Energy, and also excited to introduce our next presenter, Jason Thaxton. He's the Senior VP of Energy Resources for Avista. Thank you very much for joining today's forum. Jason is the Senior Vice President of Energy Resources for Avista. It's a utility that serves most of my district in Eastern Washington. Avista is involved in the production, transmission, and distribution of energy, providing electricity to nearly 340,000 customers and natural gas to about 300,000 customers across 30,000 square miles in the Northwest. And over half of Avista's energy source mix is supported by hydropower. And the company has a goal of reaching 100% by 2045. So Jason, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Just testing to make sure you can hear me. Great, thank you. Well, good afternoon, Chairman Newhouse, Representative McMorris Rodgers, and Representative Carter. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this Clean Energy Week forum. We have a lot of passion about this topic, and I'm pleased to be here. As you just heard, Avista is a natural gas and electric utility. We were founded in 1889 in Spokane, Washington. We have 1,800 employees with operations in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Alaska. As we talk about clean energy today, Avista starts from a great position. Over half of our generation is hydropower generation, as you just heard. Those dams, combined with our wind, solar, and our biomass power plant that's located in Representative McMorris Rodgers' hometown, mean that about 57% of our generation portfolio is already clean and renewable. Another third of our generation is natural gas, which is extremely important when the wind isn't blowing, the sun isn't shining, and in drought years like the one that we're currently experiencing. Even with one of the cleanest generating portfolios in the nation, Avista has established a clean electricity goal to be carbon neutral by the end of 2027 and to be 100% clean by 2045. It's an aspirational goal, to be sure. And as we move toward that goal, we will keep the following four things in mind. First, we will not sacrifice reliability or affordability as we make our decisions. We are ever aware that the decisions we make impact our customers in very meaningful ways. If achieving the goals means that we are unable to serve our customers when they need the energy, or that our customers are burdened by their energy bills, we will adjust our goals accordingly. Second, technologies related to a clean energy future need to mature and drop in cost in order for us to achieve our goals. For example, battery technology is useful when it's paired with variable energy resources like wind and solar. But current battery technology allows for 4 to 8 hours of discharge capability. And we need multiple times that capability in order to maintain system reliability. Whether it is the continued decline in the price of solar, wind, and battery technologies, the development of carbon capture technology, or as we just heard, recent work related to small modular nuclear generation, or the development of hydrogen technologies to facilitate blending that hydrogen with natural gas, we need to see further advances. Avista is investing in companies that will enable a cleaner energy grid, and we look forward to seeing those investments bear fruit. Third, natural gas is an important element of the clean energy future for the foreseeable future, both in terms of its use in natural gas generation and as a fuel for our residential, commercial, and industrial customers. Efforts to eliminate natural gas consumption are bound to increase the overall cost of energy for our customers. Our own studies have shown that if our natural gas customers converted to electricity, we would see a doubling of the electricity consumption, and our customers could see a doubling in their energy bills. For Avista alone, that translates to billions of dollars in additional costs, and we don't believe that's a wise action to take on behalf of our customers. When used in the right conditions, natural gas enables a cleaner energy grid, and we should strive to maintain a holistic view of the energy ecosystem. Finally, it's not just about generation. If we focus on simply building more wind and solar generation, we will not achieve our goal of 100% clean electricity in a way that preserves affordability and reliability. That's why we have developed an energy innovation space in Spokane's University District, where we explore how to partner with our customers in new ways to help them use energy more wisely. We can also test how a traditional utility can interact with customer-owned generation and storage in ways that enable an efficient and an economic energy system that benefits everyone. It is possible to have a cleaner grid than we have today across our country. We can have an affordable, reliable, and safe electric grid while moving toward a cleaner grid. Doing so requires preserving a diverse mix of generating resources, allowing technologies and the cost of those technologies to mature, and looking holistically at the energy ecosystem to reduce unintended consequences. Avista looks forward to having an ongoing role with our own clean energy goals with all of that in mind. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Mr. Thaxton. Jason, appreciate that. Mr. Carter, let me turn the floor to you so that you can introduce our next guest, which I believe is a constituent of yours. So, buddy.
Yes, he is. And I'm very proud to have him with us. And I thank you, Stan, for joining us. Stan Allen is the co-founder and the chairman and CEO of Solar America Energy. It's a solar developer and an EPC, that is engineering, procurement, and construction firm based out of Atlanta, but Stan now makes Savannah as his home, and we're very proud of that. Solar America was founded in 2009, and they've developed and constructed hundreds of megawatts of solar projects in over 14 states and over 100 countries. His clients include some of the nation's largest utilities and independent power producers. They have approximately 60 projects in Georgia, including 5 projects in my district, in the 1st Congressional District. Stan is a successful entrepreneur and an executive. He has founded or co-founded 4 companies and raised more than $300 million in private and public financing. He's been the CEO of a number of different companies, delivering building-centric technology solution and analogous to the distributed renewable energy market. So he's a graduate of the University of Virginia. He's not a dog, but we'll let him speak anyway. But we're very proud of Solar America. And as I mentioned earlier, solar power in the state of Georgia, we're now in the top 10 right now. The governor says we're going to be in the top 4 by 2024. We're very serious about this. And a big part of our success has been because of people like Stan Allen. So Stan, we thank you for being here.
Thank you all for having me here today. And thank you for letting a Wahoo speak, Congressman Carter. Yeah, I am Stan Allen, co-founder, chairman, CEO of Solar America Energy. And as Congressman Carter referenced, we're a solar developer, EPC. We also provide operations and maintenance. Now, we are all domestic. We do not do anything overseas. As Congressman Carter said, the company's headquartered in Atlanta, but last spring, my wife and I bought a home in the historic district of Savannah, which we're renovating. This is not the home in the background. It's a condominium that we're renting. But we are operating in 14 states today, but Georgia is still our linchpin state. And our success here is really what's allowed us to expand into 14 states. As Congressman Carter referenced, we're 9th today in terms of deployed solar, should be 4th at the end of 2020. And, you know, when I founded the company, we were somewhere in the 40s. So to say that we're fourth is just incredible story. A lot of that growth has been facilitated by the Georgia Public Service Commission, which consists of 5 Republican commissioners who've been very supportive of solar, and we thank them for that and do every time we see them. Importantly, this growth has been done without mandates, without a renewable portfolio standard, and without putting upward pressure on rates. In fact, as cost of solar has come down, we're actually one of the least expensive resources that Georgia Power employs, and have actually put downward pressure on rates. And that's acknowledged by the PSC and by Georgia Power itself. So we're proud of being part of that. We've also been assisted by the Solar Power Free Market Financing Act of 2015, which passed in the Georgia legislature and allows consumers and businesses to purchase solar power from solar arrays that are owned by companies like ours. And Congressman Carter was instrumental in getting that legislation passed when he was in the Georgia Senate. So we really appreciate that, Congressman. Moreover, solar is a big economic development driver in this state. Dalton, Georgia is home to the largest solar power or solar panel manufacturing plant in the Western Hemisphere. It's owned by a South Korean company called Hanwha Q Cells, but that factory employs 1,500 people on its own. And then when you look at the goods that are flowing in through the Port of Savannah, the fact that in many Georgia counties, particularly poor rural counties, solar is the biggest source of property tax revenue. There's no property tax exemption here like there is in a lot of other states, and we're doing fine without that property tax exemption. So we're happy to support local schools and other beneficiaries of property tax revenue. Companies like ours lease and purchase land from rural Georgians to supplement their other sources of income like farming. The Georgia Economic Development Authority, led by Commissioner Pat Wilson, is a very big fan of solar. I met with Commissioner Wilson about 6 weeks ago and know that for a fact. When Facebook was looking for a state in which to locate a large data center in 2018, the state of Georgia and Walton EMC stepped up to meet its demand that the data center be 100% powered by solar plus battery storage. And as most of you know, data centers consume a lot of power. Facebook has now tripled its investment through several expansions of that data center just in the last 3 years, such that they now invested $3.4 billion into that data center. So between making power more affordable for consumers without mandates and driving economic development in the state, solar is truly making Georgia a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stan. A pleasure to have you here. And again, we're going to have to check some of those ranking claims coming from Georgia, apparently, right? Right, buddy? No, great to have you. Great comments. Kathy, can I ask you to introduce, I believe, another constituent of yours? I'll give the floor to you.
I'm not sure. They may be in your district, actually.
Okay.
Dan, but we'll share them today. Really excited to introduce Gwyneth Borden. I recently was introduced to Diamond Foundry, and Gwyneth is the head of public policy. She might be out here in DC. She can tell us. But Diamond Foundry is delivering the future of a diamond with technology for man-made diamonds and other gems. Diamond Foundry has a carbon neutral diamond certification, which is what led the company to seek out the vast hydropower resources in Washington state. Diamond Foundry has a new mega carat facility in Wenatchee and has a vision for diamonds being the semiconductor of the future. Really excited to introduce Gwyneth to everyone today. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Representative McMorris Rodgers, for your kind introduction. And thank you to Chairman Newhouse and Representative Carter for hosting this hearing today and affording Diamond Foundry the opportunity to participate. It is an honor to address the Western Caucus as you celebrate National Clean Energy Week. As was mentioned, Diamond Foundry is a leader in manufacturing innovation, creating single crystal diamond wafers for semiconductors and gemstones using clean energy. In the jewelry industry, Diamond Foundry is a wholesaler and a retailer of diamond jewelry with our consumer brand, Ray. In the semiconductor industry, we're producing a diamond bi-wafer chip designed to enable next generation advances in cloud and AI computing, 5 and 6G wireless, as well as electric car power electronics. Conventional chips use silicon wafers that in recent years no longer have been able to advance on Moore's law, the regular doubling of computational power. In conventional wafers, only the top 1% of the wafer is actively used, whereas the bottom 99% is passive, causing poor thermal performance and limiting industries from cloud and AI to electric cars. Diamond Foundry's bi-wafer replaces the bottom 99% of a conventional semiconductor with a diamond crystal chip atomically bond to proven semiconductors. Diamond has the highest thermal conductivity of any material, providing a solution to the overheating in computing. Headquartered in California, Diamond Foundry has most of its production in Washington State, where we are growing and expanding. And in fact, our next site will be in Chairman Newhouse's district in Moses Lake. Our company's founders were previously in the solar industry, but were run out of it due to the inexpensive Chinese solar flooding the marketplace. Luckily, the lessons learned enabled the creation of a proprietary reactor to replicate the conditions beneath the earth that grow diamonds. We grow diamonds within 3 weeks to a month in a laboratory from a diamond seed, adding in purified methane gas and hydrogen, which we generate from water on site, that then creates the carbon lattice to form a diamond. Lab-grown diamonds were first created by General Electric in the 1950s, but only more recently has the process perfected to create high-quality jewelry-grade diamonds. Lab-grown diamonds are atomically the same as mined diamonds, and as the FTC has even clarified. Given the orientation of our founders towards clean technology, it was important that our diamonds be created using renewables and to achieve carbon neutrality. We have been carbon neutral since 2017, and it's been possible to do this because we use the excellent reliability of hydropower from the Columbia River. We continue to choose Washington State because of its abundance of hydropower, which allows us to expand without increasing our environmental footprint while creating more jobs for those without technical skills. To grow diamonds, our reactors must run 24 hours a day. Any disruption in power for more than a second can devastate our growing process. We need energy loads of 30 megawatts per hour, and our usage loads is continuous without any fluctuations. It takes 50 kilowatt hours to grow a diamond, which is applicable to a day and a half of a typical household's energy usage. Each of our reactors produce about 1,000 carats per month, with energy being our greatest cost. We expect to produce actually 1 million carats this year. Even though Washington has an abundance of hydropower, it's hard to find jurisdictions that are prepared with the substation infrastructure to supply our needs. The typical process for bringing a substation online can be 12 to 18 months, which limits our ability to scale up quickly as our growth is constrained based upon the amount of power we can access. Greater investment is needed into the hydroelectric infrastructure so that local jurisdictions can be ready to accept companies interested in expanding into their communities. We are grateful for being able to use the power of the Columbia River to grow our business and provide high-paying jobs, 90% of which don't require a college degree. Our starting pay for those without skills is north of $20 an hour, and our technicians work 12-hour shifts. We choose to pay time and a half for hours beyond 8, even though Washington State does not require it. We also provide complimentary meals and snacks for our team, as well as healthcare and other typical benefits. We also work with community college and veterans organizations to find and train workers. Our anticipated greenfield development site in Moses Lake will include a new 100,000 square foot foundry with 900 reactors to produce 2.5 million carats and generate over $250 million in revenue a year and employing more than 600 employees. Our entire wafer semiconductor fabrication process will take place in the United States in Washington State. The implications of diamond wafers in power computing and potentially quantum computing cannot be understated. And as the conversation continues about the global semiconductor shortage, diamond wafers are game changers in reducing the overall number of chips required in a car, an appliance, a device, and it reduces energy usage and leakage. As we expand and grow, we're only looking at sites with 100% renewable energy. We look forward to continuing to provide high-paying U.S. jobs that advance American innovation using hydropower. As we celebrate National Clean Energy Week, we hope that greater support and emphasis will be placed on hydropower and its related infrastructure as a way to achieve America's clean energy future. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share Diamond Foundry's story, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Borden. Appreciate you being with us, and welcome to Washington State and welcome to the 4th District. That's exciting.
Thank you.
So our final witness today, our guest, is Mr. Darvin Fales. Mr. Fales is Secretary Manager of the Columbia Basin Hydropower. He started his career, I believe, a long time ago on the Columbia Basin project back in '85 as a district engineer at the South Columbia Basin Irrigation District. He's held several positions. I think all, you can clarify, but I think all working on the Columbia Basin project, and recently has overseen the development of a variety of hydro projects, including the Banks Lake Pump Storage Project. Darvin, great to have you with us. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative McMorris Rodgers and Congressman Carter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about our hydropower project today. Columbia Basin Hydropower provides administrative, operation and maintenance functions of 7 existing hydro generation facilities owned by the 3 Columbia Basin project irrigation districts in central Washington. The irrigation districts make up the Columbia Basin project. East, South, and Quincy Columbia Basin irrigation deliver water to approximately 700,000 acres that has an economic value of over $6 billion annually. Columbia Basin hydropower facilities provide 150 megawatts of power and energy to the cities of Seattle and Tacoma and Grant County. These generation facilities are all located on irrigation delivery canals and reservoirs. Columbia Basin hydropower is also pursuing development of a pump storage project rated at 500 megawatts. The Banks Lake Pump Storage Project would utilize 2 existing reservoirs, Banks Lake and Lake Roosevelt, to provide a new source of carbon-free energy and capacity to the Pacific Northwest power grid. The proposed project is located on the west side of Lake Roosevelt, just upstream of Grand Coulee Dam. The Banks Lake project would be capable of replacing coal-fired generation being retired and provide utilities with the flexibility to integrate increasing amounts of intermittent generation coming online in the Pacific Northwest, while protecting the reliability of the region's bulk power system. Banks Lake project could generate up to 500 megawatts of electricity, 7 hours per day, every day of the week, or every day of the year, or 70 hours continuous if needed. This project would also serve as an alternative for moving water up into Banks Lake if the existing John Keys pumping plant were to fail. This unexpected event actually occurred in 2013. It happened during the off season, which was fortunate. Had it happened during the irrigation season, it would have put the 700,000 irrigated acres at risk, with a potential impact of $6 billion to the local, state, and federal economies. During development of the Banks Lake project, we worked closely with our local and regional stakeholders, including the tribes, municipalities, Northwest Power and Conservation Council, and many others. The Banks Lake project would create up to 2,600 new jobs during construction, and about 100 of those would become permanent after completion. Columbia Basin project, or Columbia Basin Hydropower, started development of the project in February of 2020 by issuing reclamation a notice of intent to develop the site. Reclamation began its process towards awarding the lease of power privilege. We're now 19 months into that process. Once a preliminary lease is awarded, the developer will have 4 years to complete all the requirements before Reclamation will issue the notice to proceed to construction. Construction is currently estimated to take about 2 years. So the Banks Lake project could be ready for commercial operation as early as 2027. The backbone of energy supply in the Northwest has historically been hydropower generation. With the decommissioning of the coal plants in the next few years, the generation landscape continues to change. Pacific Northwest hydroelectric system has been a major contributor for integrating, balancing, storing the energy from nearly 10,000 megawatts of wind and solar resources developed in the region over the past 15 years. One of the primary reasons wind and solar development in the Northwest has been so successful is the flexibility of the hydroelectric system. It has been a good marriage of the two generation resources. However, the flexibility of the federal hydropower system is nearly exhausted. States in the West continue to enact increasingly more restrictive renewable portfolio standards, which require other resources to provide backup generation and grid stability. Most utilities plan to provide these services with simple cycle or combined cycle combustion turbines, which do not provide the same flexibility that a hydro resource can, nor is the life cycle nearly as long. Additionally, as you know, hydropower resources have a zero carbon footprint. The Banks Lake project is a greatly needed resource in the Northwest for the continued stability and reliability of the power system. Thank you.
Thank you, Darvin. Appreciate that very much. All excellent testimonies. Thank you guys all for contributing to our conversation here. Due to trying to, where did he go? Mr. Carter, is he still with us? Buddy, are you still with us? Maybe he had to sneak up. Oh, there you are.
I am. Dan, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask Stan a real quick question.
Yeah, I wanted to go to you first because I understand you've got to leave us. So
I
please, go ahead.
do. I apologize. I've got a live hit in just a second.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
But Stan, when you were talking about solar, and one of the things that we've been very concerned about here on Capitol Hill has been our dependency on China. And, our reliance on China, we all know about rare earth minerals. We all know that a lot of the solar panels are coming from China. The supply chain issues that have been growing through the solar demand. Could you talk about your ability, our ability here in America to meet that growing demand and what can be done to improve the supply chains?
Well, I'm glad y'all are concerned. I'm concerned too. And this goes back to even pre-COVID. Dealing with the Chinese was problematic in a lot of ways, starting with the time difference, the fact that we've got different holidays. If you try to get somebody in China during Chinese New Year, which seems to last forever, good luck. I mean, they don't answer phones, they don't respond to emails. All the credit is run through a government entity called Sinosure. It makes it very hard to do business as a solar company when your only choice might be Chinese panels. Now, thankfully, Hanwha's opened the facility here. First Solar is expanding its manufacturing operations, I know, in at least Ohio and maybe in Arizona as well. So, and there is a domestic producer of polysilicon, Hemlock, which is in Michigan. And I wish there were more Hemlocks producing polysilicon in the US, but it's a real concern. I think we'll get there, but right now panels are tough to come by and prices seem to be going up. Now what goes up must come down, but it's a concern.
Buddy, go ahead. Any other questions you have?
No, Stan, you mentioned a company in Dalton, Georgia that makes the solar power panels as well. And that's a good example where we need to be investing, because I will tell you, there is serious concern, as I mentioned on Capitol Hill, about our dependence on China. And this is something we're going to have to get resolved.
Yeah, and when you look at the trends in solar deployment, it is going to get harder without more domestic production, because those are big numbers that people are putting out there. And, to have to rely on China is just problematic to support that growth. So certainly hope there are more companies like Hanwha who elect to locate domestically, and that happens to be great for Georgia, but they could locate in other states as well, as long as they're in the US. It would be much easier for us to deal with them, and it would, the supply of panels would go up and prices would probably come down. So it's
And it would create jobs in America.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Dan. I apologize. I've got to run.
Yeah, well, thanks for being with us, buddy. Great contributions. Ranking Member McMorris Rodgers, I'll turn to you to ask any questions you might have.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. And Jason Paxton from Avista, it's great to see you. Appreciate your testimony and everything that Avista is doing in our region. And I appreciated that you had to that your focus on continued reliability and affordability, which I have to imagine is getting tougher and tougher. And I just wanted to ask, how do you prioritize reliability in the face of just this changing energy policies that you see at all levels, at the federal, state, and local level? And then also wanted to ask if you would speak to the importance of hydropower.
Absolutely, and we sure appreciate your support also. I often talk about how, as a utility, we have this obligation to serve and a commitment to serve, and we really find ourselves trying to find this intersection of what is reliable that we can count on, what is affordable, and I talked about that, and what is clean, and when we can make decisions around the type of generation that we have serving our customers that is has a lower carbon footprint and also preserves that affordability and reliability, then that intersection is really where we try to work, because there are a lot of parties out there that have a focus on one of those elements, but not all three of those elements. So the way that we try to engage in that, so for example, 2 years ago in the state of Washington, there was some legislation around clean energy legislation. And we engaged in that process to help the policymakers understand how important affordability and reliability is, so that when that legislation was finally passed into law in the state, there were provisions for relief valves, I call them, related to affordability and related to reliability, that we could go to the commission and show that if we take this step that we have to do in order to comply with this law, that our customers' reliability might be at risk, or the impact on their bill might be too much. So that's how we try to engage both at the state and the national level, is to make sure that we have those provisions in there so that those unintended consequences don't come to reality. And then in terms of hydropower generation, we, as I mentioned, founded 132 years ago as a hydroelectric generation company. For most of our early decades of existence, we were solely hydropower. It is so important for the reasons that you described earlier and others did as well. No carbon dioxide emissions, it's clean, it's renewable. It is our lowest cost source of generation for our customers, which allows us to have a relatively low energy bill compared to the rest of the country. And it's because of that hydroelectric generation. So we really focus on making sure that we maintain those plants, that we look for opportunities to upgrade where we can, the facilities that we have, so that some of our power plants have been around for over 100 years, and we hope to have those for 100 years and more to come.
Great. And just appreciate also Avista's continued focus on innovation and how to address these issues while maintaining so that we do have reliable and affordable energy moving forward. Gwyneth, it was just recently that I was introduced to Diamond Foundry, and thrilled that you could join us today. it just kind of blows my mind, a million carats over the next year. Would you just talk a little bit more about why Diamond Foundry chose to locate in Washington State?
Yes, I mean, the hydropower is the most reliable source of power. Um, our founders were in solar, and solar is great and wind is great, but when it comes to renewables, you also have to have then batteries powered as backup for those off hours to go with those forms of renewables. Also, the cost. Hydropower is the most cost-effective way, and as I mentioned, we use a lot of energy in growing our diamonds. But the upside is huge because of the things that we're talking about, the innovation in computing, and actually that our diamonds can help save the amount of computing power and energy used in data centers and electric cars, giving them longer distances they can travel. But for us, it really was about having an opportunity to access the most reliable form of power at a very affordable cost in a beautiful place with wonderful people to have work for us.
That's great. Yes, we have the largest natural batteries in the world, right?
Exactly.
And then just a quick question to Mr. Sell. Great, really appreciate you joining us. Excited about advanced nuclear reactors and the role that they can play in transitioning to a clean energy future. Many say that we will never be able to reach these goals without nuclear. And are there any particular regulatory barriers to this innovation that concern you?
Yes, I mean, concern about regulatory barriers is a major part of my job. But I will tell you that the laws that the Congress have passed over the last 3 to 4 years focused on reform of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission are very, very important. And we have a leader of the NRC and Chris Hansen today that is committed to continued reform. So I think that's on a very good trajectory. There is broad recognition. It's long existed on Capitol Hill that you can't even get close to your carbon goals without a massive build out of nuclear. Not some nuclear, but a massive build out of nuclear. And I've been very encouraged to hear that same view expressed by the current administration. And that's being reflected in the appointments that they make to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and onward. So, the regulatory process will always be a challenge, but I think it is headed in the right direction. I believe when we make the case that we can make and that we will make about the safety case of our reactor, that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission will give us the full benefit of that safety case and allow us to economically build the XE #1 in the Tri-Cities area. And like I said, what will start in Washington State, I truly believe will completely transform the global energy, the way the globe thinks about carbon-free energy.
Exciting technology. And I love that we're leading the way and then can export it to others around the world. Thank you everyone again. And thank you, Dan. It's good to be with you. I'll yield back.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you for your contributions to this discussion too. And Clay, thanks for that response to Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers. I was going to ask a similar question, but I do want to just say that the excitement about the X-Energy Partnership project in South Central Washington is high. People are very much looking forward to seeing this project be successful. And so thank you very much for your commitment to nuclear energy, not just in the Tri-Cities, not just in Washington State, but throughout the country and the world. Very important. Your response and Kathy's question about the challenges you're facing regulatorily is a great segue, because you responded to her question. I wanted to ask Darvin about the same kind of thing. You and your team have been working on the Banks Lake pump storage project for a number of years now, and continue to run into regulatory and permitting barriers. I've got a bill which Representative McMorris Rodgers has been good enough to help me lead in the past, that would streamline some of those permitting requirements. So Darvin, could you talk about where the project currently stands and what regulatory and permitting simplicity or streamlining could do for a project of your nature?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that question. Columbia Basin Hydropower has been working on this Banks Lake project for over 10 years, and they've invested millions of dollars. Today, what we find is that we are, FERC, which is Department of Energy, has jurisdiction over Banks Lake, North Dam, and Reclamation has jurisdiction over the Department of Interior's Lake Roosevelt. So therefore, we are required to obtain a license from FERC as well as a lease from the Bureau of Reclamation, which causes us to duplicate our efforts and an additional costs. So we've had this conversation. Legislation is required to avoid the duplicative process. And your bipartisan bill that you and Representative McMorris Rodgers, Senator Cantwell have proposed and supported relieves us from that, will relieve us from that duplicative process. And we thank you for that support. As far as where we're at currently on our project, we're still waiting to hear from Reclamation. As I mentioned earlier, we're about 19 months into this process, which by Reclamation's own directives and standards, this process should have been completed in about 10 or 11 months. Hoping to hear some word, hopefully next month. They've indicated that October I should be hearing something, but the regulatory process is needed. However, the streamlining is needed so much more. These efforts need to be stepped up because time is money, and their delay, Reclamation's delay, has caused problems in other aspects of our development. So we're still hopeful and working well with Reclamation, but the process could be improved.
Good. Thank you very much for that. So guess what? We've come to the end of the time we have for today's discussion. And I sincerely want to thank everyone for being with us today, participating in this important conversation. As you all noted, in order to meet our energy goals and make that transition to a clean energy future, energy infrastructure must be at the forefront of all of these conversations that we're going to have. Or the goals that we've set will never become a reality. I hope you understand now that members of the Western Caucus, we've got ideas, we've got solutions. Members of the Energy and Commerce Committee do as well. And I know private industry does too. And we look forward to continue working with you as partners to move these solutions forward. So everybody, thanks again for participating and for helping to celebrate National Clean Energy Week. And we look forward to our continued strong working relationship. So thank you all. Thanks for being here and have a great day.